Welcome back, everyone. So, I'm going to be doing something in this video that I probably should hire someone to do, but they decided to charge way too much for it, and I'm going to do it myself. So in this video, I'm going to install a 240 volt, actually two of them, in here in my garage, as you can see. And we're going to use that to charge the new car and also to use the welder. All right, so I have done my fair share of research on what I need for this job. So to start off with, like I said, I'm gonna get two. I'm gonna get one of them for the car charger and the other one for my welder. So welder's gonna be different for anyone. It just depends on your welder. For my welder, that's the outlet that it uses. This one is called a 6-50. And of course, this one I'm gonna be using for my car, which is a 14-50. Now, in order to put those in the wall, you're gonna need a box. I decided to go with the metal box. Based on code, you don't need to use a metal box, but metal boxes, I guess, just last longer, plus it can be used for grounding too, so I decided not to cheap out on this. So I've got the box. I also got I think they're called mud plates that go over them. So that's a little thing that goes over it, so you can mount the little faceplate that goes on there to cover up everything once it's all installed. So I've got all of those. I've also have the NM cable connector. I'll link this all down below if you guys want to take a look. I got this all at my local Lowe's. These are the little connectors that will go into like the box and also right on over there in the electrical panel. Just so it keeps it in place. I did have to get some of these. I'm sure I have some floating around in my random screws, but I just picked up some of these. They go right here in the back of the box for your grounding wire once we get to that. And of course, the actual thing. So this one is for the Tesla charger. So it is a 50 amp double breaker. That's for 240. So two of them is 240. 50 amps is the max that you want to go. And this one, again, it depends on your welder, but your welder's user manual will tell you exactly how many amps, what your breaker needs to be on, blah, blah, blah. So this is going to be on its own break. This is just going to be for that one, which is only going to be used for my welder. So I might be able to upgrade it in the future. That's why I didn't skimp out on the last but not least thing. Most expensive thing you need is the wire. So this wire is called 6-3 wire. Basically what that means is it's 6 gauge. As far as I know, that's like the thickest that you can get. It's used for 240 volt applications like this. And 3 means there's 3 main wires. Technically there's 4 because you have that ground, but that's what it's used for. This one is not going to use all the wires, but if in the future I decide to get a new welder or something like that, I can possibly switch it. I'm going to use the same wire and just not wire up one of them. So if I do want to put another one in or something different, the wiring will be good in the wall. I won't have to pull that out. I can use it for 2, which this one is, or 3, which it'll come with. And only thing I'll need to do is switch out the outlet and then the breaker. So this is all the stuff you need. And if you go to Lowe's and get all of this stuff together was about $88 or something like that, just for this stuff, for 2 outlets. This is the expensive stuff. This is 30 feet and it cost me $222. So all this stuff is really cheap to get. The installation part is where I'm sure electricians make a crap ton of money because, you know, over $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to put this in. All I have to do is find the place that I want it. If you want it cheaper, put it closer to the box. More expensive is further away just because that's more expensive for the wire. So I'm gonna do both. I'm going to put the Tesla charger in the middle of my garage here, and I'm gonna route it up and then through and then into there, where the other one for my welder, I'm just gonna put it right down below. So I only need a tiny amount of wire just to come up through the wall into the fuse panel and hooked up. That one's gonna be super, super cheap to do. The other one's gonna be more expensive because that's where most of the wiring's going. So, get a little shot back here. I'm gonna move my stuff out of the way and we're gonna figure out where we want it. So the cool thing about this house is I've actually been here throughout the entire building process, and I have pictures and videos, so I know exactly what is behind all of these walls. The only thing that I could possibly hit is over here. My main water line runs through there, but I'm not drilling in anything over there, so I don't care. And the only other thing is I have electrical lines from all the outlets and garage door, all that stuff runs straight across. So as long as I'm not cutting directly into this area down here, I'll be fine. And also, between right here, between these two studs, there's actually wood that goes in between. I forgot what it's called. Everyone down below, I'm sure, will let everyone know. But that's the only part there, so it's gonna be really freaking impossible to fish wire up into the attic if I go on that one. Good thing is, I wanna go one more over. So, I can already tell where my studs are because that's where they drilled for the drywall. So this stud is the one that I want to use to the right of it. So I'll use my stud finder to figure out where the edges are on that. I'm going to come down to the height that I want it, mark it, drill a hole or cut a hole or something like that so I can figure out where the stud is, and then get my box cut out. And I do have to mention this, I am not an electrician. I am just a random dude on the internet. Don't ever listen to me. This is for entertainment purposes, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Don't do what I'm doing. Also, if you are going to do any of this stuff, look at your own state's code because every state's have their own code. I checked my code for my state and they say there is a standard on how high outlets are, but it's not required. Like you don't have to put it at 44 inches or you don't have to put it at a certain one. So I'm gonna find, it's gonna be somewhere around here so I can still have my compressor over here and right behind it, actually put that and then snake it in and, you know, do car stuff. All right, so I made two little dots right about there. And my box, if I align that directly on the wall, we're looking at right about here is where it would be mounted. So I'm going to trace out that box very roughly because I need to make sure that's exactly where the edge of the stud is. All right, now I don't have any fancy tools for drywall, so I've got a razor, which should not be an issue. Razor is gonna cut through, like if there was a wire behind the wall, but the drywall is not that thin to where I'm gonna accidentally nick something. This should just barely go through the drywall, so hopefully I'll be fine. Fingers crossed, I might die. All right, so I just, as you can see, just cut out a little rectangle of my actual square just to see where I was at. And you can see, barely, these are my two dots where my stud finder started, and it looks like it was right on cue. So I just need to carve a little bit more of this out so I'm flush with that wood, and then make sure my box is on exactly where it should be, redraw that line, and we'll continue on with taking out this hole. I have made a hole. Guess there's no going back now. Here's the box, here's the hole. It goes in, yay! I don't want to push it in too far or else I will have my own set of issues. So it fits in there, beautiful. Once I actually get the wires in there, I've seen that it might be a bit more difficult, so I might have to carve a little more out. But for now, that fits the box. Step one complete. All right, hole is there, stud is there. Now the next thing I'm gonna have to do is get prepared to get the wire routed up into the attic through the wall. So we're gonna have to measure how far over that is. I am literally up in the attic now. So if we come into this wonderland up here, look, it's Christmas themed. If we come up here, we can see, so my wall starts right here, right where these boards are. That is right where the border of the garage is. So I need to measure how far over I am currently right here to how far over. I'm pretty sure it's right over here, but we're gonna have to move this out of the way. And you can see right there, there's that slab of wood. Right under that is the space in between the drywall. So I'm gonna have to drill a hole there so I can route the wires up through here. So I'll say I drill a hole right here. They'll come up through here, I grab those, and then I can route them over that way. You can see that's where all of my other major electrical lines are down there. Kind of hard to see, but that's where they're at over there. We'll route them that away. But first I gotta measure it to figure out where to drill this hole. All right, you can see that I fished the line through. So I came up here, just measured out, drilled a hole, and then fed it through there until it started to come through, and then grab it. So again, it depends on where you are and what your code says, but once we actually get this into the box, it needs to be sticking out at least 6 inches. So I give myself a little bit of extra here. So this part is pretty much done. We just need to put the box and hook everything up and make that look pretty. And then with those wires up there, I just have to route them across, make sure they're secured against the beams and everything up there, down, and then do the same thing. Measure it, drill a hole, and feed it right through into the breaker. All right, so now I'm gonna get the box ready. So I punched out one of these little 1/2-inch ones, and that's when I'm gonna grab these guys. So these guys are gonna be the ones that fit into these little 1/2-inch. They're gonna look just like that. I'm gonna somehow tighten that on once it's actually in. All right, so I stuck the wiring through, and then I tightened down the back, so it's just these 2 screws right back here. Once you tighten those in, it just can't slide in and out. So now's kind of the hard part, because this does not easily just go straight back. You kind of have to like weirdly bend it to try to get it in place. All right, so now I'm gonna take the sheathing back. No special tools, just the same razor I used to cut the drywall. Gonna take that sheathing back by. And now we have all of our fun little cables here. So we've got our white, black, red, and our ground is hidden inside this little sheathing in here. So this one we can peel back, totally fine. It's bare wire that we're going to have hook up to that one. There we go. And then these ones, we only need to peel back the sheathing on these ones as much as is needed on to the connectors. So it does have a little place on here. You can see it right there. It says strip gauge. So you just put your wire up against that, and the edge, that's where you put your mark and start stripping it there, and then pull it back. There we go. So right at this very edge, we're gonna snip it. So it's gonna look just like that. It's right where we want it. All right, you can see that all of these are ready to go, ready to be wired up. And this part is actually easy because everything is shown here. So this ground wire is going to be your bare copper wire. This one down here where it says white is going to be your white or your neutral. And then your other 2 X and Y, those are just your 2 hots, which is gonna be your red and your black. Doesn't matter which way you hook them up, red and black, but that's where they go. So we're gonna back out the screw. So you can see here, screw's gonna come up, kind of just like a subwoofer, if you've ever done with subwoofer. Screw's gonna go up, you're gonna put it all the way through, and then you're gonna tighten it down. And I think before I get all of these hooked up to my outlet here, I'm going to do the ground wire first. I wanted to do the ground wire first, but I just remembered it also has to be attached to the box too. So I'm gonna get my little green screw that came with my green screws, and I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna squeeze it in so it wraps around the screw just a little bit, and then it's also gonna come out and attach here. As you can see, I just put the green screw in, not all the way. So it's just, you know, just started to be thread in. So I can get this looped around. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my pliers and I'm going to squeeze both sides together so it makes a better loop before I actually tighten this in. That way I can make sure that this thing is not gonna be popping out for any reason. There we go. So now that that is done, I can tighten that up so it's nice and secure, and I actually go on and plug these in. So definitely the hardest part of this whole thing is to smush these wires back in there so you can actually get this thing flush. Especially if you're up to code where you want 6 inches poking out, then yeah, that's a lot to shove back in there. Maybe this will help you guys out if you are using a metal box, because these corners can get a little jagged. If it's rubbing up against this, I put some tape on here to give it just an extra layer to not rub up against when you're trying to smush them back in the box. You can see up here, like the layer on the outside gets a little, I guess kind of cut back to these corners. So maybe that'll help you guys out when you're doing that. But I almost forgot, I gotta secure this box before I get any further with this. So the 2 little holes right there, I'm gonna get some screws. I'm gonna smush this back in the wall, and then those 2 screws are gonna go right into that stud. So you can see right there, I've got screw up top and screw in the bottom. So both of those are in there, box is secured. I had to kind of like pop it against the inside of the drywall so it wouldn't just come out like this. But now I have to figure out how to get the mud plate on there, because the hole is too small, so I might have to cut out more hole. Well, it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it's in there. And boy, is that a pain in the butt to get in. But once you get the actual connector in, and then I don't know why they decided to do flathead. That made it so much easier. Put one of those in, then you'll be able to get the other one, and then, yeah, each one you get in makes it easier. I tightened everything down. Tried to push this one back, but it's just not catching on anything anymore, but it's pretty darn solid. It is connected to the stud there, so that's how you're supposed to install it. Just looks a little off because it is a little off. All right, now I'm gonna put the face plate on to make it look pretty. So before I screw these in, I'm actually checking. So they're supposed to screw into these holes here, the corner ones. I'm just making sure there's nothing behind them, even though these aren't sharp, smashing into one of them. So the only one that was close was the black wire that I had here. So I just kind of scooted it up. Yes, I know it's not easy to scoot anything in here, but I just got my screwdriver in there and kind of just tugged on it until it finally got enough out of the way to where when I put a screw through here, it's not gonna potentially pinch into it. So now that that is in there, look at that. Isn't that pretty? Maybe not a little bit up at the top, but everywhere else besides the issues that I had, looks pretty good. And there she is. She is installed and pretty, and it's got a wire connected to the back of it. Now all we gotta do is route the wire to the power source. So I'm gonna go up there, I'm gonna route that wire all the way to the top over here, and I shouldn't have to worry about drilling any holes because that's currently where they're coming out, is up top. So let me take this panel off, you'll probably be able to see it better. So this is what it looks like with its dress off. We're all looking up in its bits. So up top here is where we need, it looks like, to pop another hole open. So I didn't think I'd need to do that. So before I do anything, touch anything in here, all these breakers need to be turned off. Main breaker needs to be turned off. Can't risk zapping the living hell out of myself. Don't want that. But once we do get it in here, we'll be able to pop one of these little holes up top, just like we did on the box, which is not an easy thing to do. All right, so I found the spot up above where all of these are going through, and there's drilled wood and everything. So I've got all the power turned off. So what we need to do now is I need to pop a hole, or at least try to pop a hole through one of these top ones, and then we'll try feeding the wire. This one's gonna be a pain in the butt, but we'll start with the popping of the hole. All right, so I was able to finally pull it down through that hole, but I did need to knock out another one in order to get it lined up. I was having issues. I drilled the hole up there, which actually there's a bunch of holes where all this stuff is already routed up there. So I just had to make the hole a little bit bigger just to put these through. So I drilled that out, pushed it all the way down, and it kept curving. I could see up through this hole it was coming in like this and I just couldn't get a hold of it. So I had to knock out this one so I could align it and put it down. But I was able to get it through. So I do need to get something besides one of these. So whatever they used here before, I got to jump over to Lowe's and grab one of those just so it's not, you know, cutting and rubbing up against those. So I'm gonna grab one of those at Lowe's. I already looked it up. It's like 30 something cents. This will work, but it also doesn't fit. The hole that close to the edge, it hits and it won't be able to actually close completely on here. Plus, actually tightening these up is next to impossible. All right, I've got it pulled all the way through. And I cut it right here to give myself more than enough room. I might have to trim it a little bit more, but I'm gonna have it on the right side just because it falls on the right side. So I'm gonna put my breaker in here. And then here's the little bus bar that we have for our neutral and our ground. So I thought there was going to be, I know some of them do have separate ones. They've got this one, and then they've got like a separate one over here just for grounds. But as you can see, you've got bare grounds and you also have neutrals on here. I didn't know that was a thing that people could do, but that's a thing. So I'm gonna measure out my wire here, get it out of the way and get it installed. It's actually pretty easy if you take a look at the ones that are already on. So if I get my 50 and I decide to, let's see, on is gonna be over here. So these screws, back them out, put the wire in there, tighten them up, just like these ones are doing right here. These two are gonna be your two hot that we hooked up already. So our red and our black, again, doesn't matter which way it goes. And then our other two are going to find their place in here. Definitely do not, I guess, put 2 in 1 is what I've read. So one will go in one and another will go in another. Don't put both of them in the same. Looks like the next nearest one open is right here. Oops. So I might just have enough room to get to that one. Maybe I should have given myself some more. All right, just got them peeled back. Now I just need to strip our two hots over here. And you can see on the breaker, it's got writing a little bit everywhere. You can find one where it says strip. So I guess we have to take our pants off before we get this wire down to size. There we go. I've got both of them nice and tight. It says on here 30 like foot-pounds or 30 inch-pounds, 30-something pounds. If you have something to measure that, do that. Now I have to figure out exactly how they pop on and off of here. So I'm thinking, oh, these things are so hard to maneuver. But once I build up enough strength to get it over here, I'm thinking it just kind of goes in and slides over. Well, I did figure it out. On the right-hand side, you have to make sure that part goes in first. So you'll click it in on the right-hand side and then the rest of the way. So it's gonna be kind of like a rocking motion. Let me find my other one. When you put it in, you can see you have the little feet over here. So you'll figure out where the feet go in, put them in there, and then once it's in like this, then you'll click it forward. So it'll be in this way, and then these little feet over here will go inside right there. So we put it in and then click it that way. Okay, so this is taking me a while. What I ended up doing is just taking, as you can see, I got a free one up here now. I went down until I saw 2 free ones and just basically moved everything down 2. Nothing is stretched or anything. There was more than enough room for all of those if I went down 2 instead of like trying to take this one and move it down here and the next one and move it down. If I just moved all of them down by a block of 2, just like this side, you might be able to see it. They're all full, and then there's some blank ones in the middle and then blank ones at the bottom. I don't know why they did that, but if I want to add one on top like I did, it makes it kind of a pain in the butt. So I moved everything down. I just installed this one over here, kind of shoved it in the back like the rest of them. And last, I just need to strip this one down and pop it in that very first one. And that one is now in. So I have both the neutral and the ground on that little bus bar. I've got this installed with the black and the red, just like when we actually installed it on the wall over there. Once we get everything in place, I just went back through and made sure it was tight. Just from moving it around and whatnot, it kind of loosens up a little bit. So make sure those are still nice and tight in there. And that's it. We've got the wires plugged in. We've got it routed through the wall and plugged in at the other end. So I'm gonna keep this one in the off position and everything else, make sure I got it, yeah. Everything else is where it should be, so let's hit the on switch. Okay, the house is officially on. That's good, I can turn my flashlight off. Now, last but not least, is to turn this breaker on. If it pops a breaker, I did something wrong. If an explosion happens, I did something wrong. If a fire bursts out, from there to up there to over here, I did something wrong. Let's see what it does. Dear God, I don't want to die. I don't hear any creepy noises. I think we did it. How you doing, buddy? How you doing? Everything all right in there? No? No fizzing? No yelling? All right. So that leaves the only thing left to do is, besides put this back on, we need to pop out. There we go. We need to pop out 2 of these so it can actually show through. So I've seen people just get a pair of pliers and just grab this and pop it out. So let's do that. And there we go. That was actually really easy. Yeah, just grab some pliers and kind of move them around and they pop right off. So I can now label 4 and 6 as being my 240 volt in the garage. I'll call it probably car charger or something like that. Not really sure because I have to differentiate that one over there. And then once we actually do the second one, I'm just gonna put it right here, pop it straight through up top. That one should be super easy, super cheap. All right, Tesla's green. That means go. So that works. I just need to actually try charging the car, but you can do that, or you can do a volt reader, whatever you'd like to actually get that tested out. But that turns on, plugs in, it's 240 volts. Fantastic. Put this back together and we'll be done. There it is. Plugged in by myself, saved myself maybe $1,000+. Everything works. It is charging at max amperage for that connector, which is 32 amps. So it's maxed out, it's doing what it is. I couldn't be happier with it. Yeah, looks wonderful. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more of this glorious little booger.